I'm so sorry to burst your bubble, but Pete Buttigieg is not going to be Kamala Harris's vice presidential pick. Let me tell you why.
This is What the Fuck America. It's politics for cool people and culture for smart people.
We are running on a tight-ass schedule here. Democrats need to choose a running mate for Kamala Harris before their nominating convention on August 7th. They're doing it virtually, and that's really too bad because I feel like white boy summer is just becoming fully realized right now. These men are jumping on literally any mic they can find to show Kamala Harris what they're made of. It is like a decathlon of shade. This is political survivor that we're witnessing in real time. The only thing that separates this from like a Chip and Dale's audition is that they keep their shirts on, for now at least. Okay, so we are going to build a resume of exactly what I think Kamala Harris is looking for in a vice presidential candidate. Every action in this case is Kamala Harris, has its equal and opposite reaction. In this case, her VP. People will always make women out to be lightweights. So we're really looking for her anchor, like a kind of man who can hold her down, because Kamala Harris already has 2 strikes against her. First of all, she's a woman, and Americans are like, boo, boo. Second of all, she's a woman of color, and Americans are like, boo, boo, you can't win. So she needs a balancing insurance policy out of a vice president. And in that case, this means a white man with like no liabilities. And that is a level 10 difficulty challenge, as Donald Trump is quickly finding out with his pick, JD Vance. So for example, Pete Buttigieg, in my opinion, is being vetted out of like a sign of respect, but he's not actually going to be picked because his unfortunate liability in the climate that we're in this country is that he's gay. So we have 3 categories to weigh here. We have demography, geography, ideology. Those are the most important things. And we can start with, she needs an absolutely masculine man, but masculine in an accessible way to everybody. She needs somebody who is going to be like an attack dog out on TV going after these Republicans. And you can already hear the barks starting from potential candidates. They want someone who's not Ivy League educated. They're going to leave that to Trump and JD Vance, who are both Ivy Leaguers, because they are on this like elitist bender, you could say. They want to reconnect with rural America, get back to the Democratic Party's blue-collar roots. So they're looking for somebody who can speak fluently to a much-needed constituency. I'm looking at the Midwest, to be completely honest. And if the Midwest can do one thing, it's sniff out a fake. So they need someone who's going to be authentic about this. I'm a little bit less sure of what she wants ideologically because she hasn't released a platform or really said where she stands on a lot of issues. So I'm curious to see if this pick will draw her more to the center or draw her more to the left. Unknown on that one. But one thing is like abundantly clear. She wants somebody who has had executive experience, i.e. experience actually governing. That's going to be played heavily in contrast to JD Vance's 1 year in government. So she wants someone who can flex those governing muscles. Okay, and I'll be the first to admit when I failed at something, and I failed to bring something up in my Trump Veepstakes video, which is that all of these candidates have replacement concerns. If they are bumped up into the White House, who is then elevated into their seat? And is it somebody from a different party? Because that could shake up the landscape of everything, the Senate, the House, governorships, whatever. So we'll be taking a close look at that. I have been searching high and low for a way to bring this back, so thank you, Kamala Harris, for affording me the opportunity to do so. There were supposed to be 5 faces on this wheel, but then, of course, last night, the governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, decided that his heart wasn't in it because he was focused on delivering his state for Democrats in the fall, where he's termed out as governor. So he said, take my name off the list. What an honor and a valiant thing to do. Anyway, these are our 4 contenders. Let's spin it. This is Mark Kelly. He is the senator from Arizona. He's 60 years old, was elected in 2020. He's basically as moderate as it gets, definitely the most moderate centrist Democrat out of all of the bunch. He's a retired Navy combat pilot. And if there's one thing that Americans love more than that, it's an astronaut. Bingo. He's an astronaut. He's also a huge wife guy, and you may be familiar with his wife, Gabby Giffords. She was a former congresswoman who was shot in the head, and out of that has come a massive mobilization and political effort against gun violence in America. Apparently, 75% of the candidates that they put up for office have won their seat. That's like crazy ratio. So there's this like political organization building and management already built into him, which could be very appealing. Mark Kelly actually offsets one of Kamala Harris's biggest liabilities herself, which is that she is perceived to be very, very weak on immigration and the border. He is a hardliner as far as Democrats go when it comes to immigration policies. So when it comes to Republicans attacking her for her failed efforts as vice president, he might be able to really lift her up in that sense. He's also offsetting one of his own biggest liabilities, which is that he was perceived to be anti-labor because he wasn't signed on to this piece of legislation that Democrats are trying to get passed to overhaul labor laws. He decided this week that he's 2 thumbs up. He's ready to support it to hopefully curry some favor with labor leaders. His replacement issue: the governor appoints a Democratic senator to fill his place, and then they have a special election in 2026. That will be a midterm election year. They're really worried about losing that seat, specifically in an environment that might be more favorable to Republicans at that point if Kamala Harris does win the presidency. His cons: this is a personal thing, but like identical twins absolutely freak me the fuck out. So like imagine 2 of him, they're both astronauts. It's just like a little trippy for me. So we are really risking a parent trap situation, and that might be a national security threat in my opinion. Other than that, he's maybe like not the most charismatic, commanding guy, and he lacks a little bit of that formal, lengthy experience in government that Kamala Harris is looking for, but he's a big contender. Let's move on. This is Andy Beshear. He is the governor of Kentucky. He's 46 years old. And I know you're sitting here like, excuse me, what? The state that has sent Mitch McConnell to Congress for 7 straight fucking terms has reelected a Democratic governor twice who's under the age of 50. How does that happen? I'll tell you. He is kind of a Nepo baby. His dad was governor of Kentucky for 2 terms also. So he's like Bane. He's like, you merely adopted politics. I was born in it, molded by it. He and the lieutenant governor are the only statewide elected Democrats in Kentucky. So there's no issues with replacement stuff there. They're chilling till 2027. Put it off to the future. Andy Beshear has the highest approval rating of any Democratic governor in the country. So I'm here like, why and how does that happen in a place like Kentucky? It's probably because he's able to convert GOP strongholds like that Democrats had probably long forgotten and overlooked. He can speak to the blue-collar American industry pains and like reestablish Democrats' presence in that lane that I was talking about that they've long ignored. And he's done all of that while maintaining like a pretty progressive record, surprisingly. Let me read to you. He's fought for abortion access. He restored voting rights to 180,000 people. He expanded Medicaid, raised teacher pay, and has the highest budget surplus in state history. That's not nothing. The cons among that are, to be a viable Democrat in a state like Kentucky, you have to mortgage some policy things. And for him, that looks like climate change. He does not talk about climate change. He does not reference climate change. He does not wink at climate change. He rejected climate change funding from the Inflation Reduction Act. And that's because that's coal country, baby. So they have not figured out how to work that one yet. And Kentucky hasn't voted blue since my first birthday. So it's on you to figure out when the hell that was. So there's almost no electoral upside there unless he can reach out to states that neighbor Kentucky. We'll see if those positives offset the cons. This is Tim Walz. I just found out that it's Walz and not Waltz, so I have been mispronouncing it. And he's the governor of Minnesota, who is 60 years old, which is literally Kamala Harris's age. And I don't understand how these two are the same age. He looks 75 and she looks 40. And my only awareness of this man was from this video of him signing a bill surrounded by school children where everybody in that room is just bursting with joy, and you can't help but burst with joy when you really see that. And then everything I've seen about him since has just made me like him more, which I know as a journalist, I'm not technically allowed to like people like that, but I do. And Tim Walz is basically a walking pile of baffling contradictions. He is a retired National Guard vet and public school teacher. 2 different things. High school championship football coach, but also was the student advisor of the Gay Straight Student Alliance. Chair and leader of the Democratic Governors Association, but also the guy next door who like fucking loves mowing their lawn. He just is like existing in this ball of contrasts that Democrats have been hiding and running away from for centuries, it feels like at this point. He's definitely got that executive experience that she's looking for on lock. He might be the most effective Democrat in the country right now. Let me read you this list of things he's gotten done. Legalized cannabis, universal background checks for guns, protections for abortion and gender-affirming care, paid family leave, automatic voter registration, some free public college, police reform, there's more. And I'm here like, I owe you an apology. I was not familiar with your game. And right now he's basically being shot out of a cannon onto the media circuit where he's pioneering the "why are you being so weird" strategy against Republicans that's making them crazy.
These guys are just weird. That's who they are. But we're not afraid of weird.
So he's putting a lot of effort into preaching this collectivism, collective identity. We can all have rights. You know, I think like Victoria Justice, we can all sing. He's like, we can all have rights. He has no replacement issues because there is a Democrat lieutenant governor in Minnesota. So I'm over here like, okay, cons. What's the con? Like, he looks old, maybe. He has low name ID, maybe he's too progressive. Minnesota hasn't voted red since 1972 is a problem. Are these even real cons, or like, is this guy just kind of a unicorn? I can't wait for that question to be answered and probably for my heart to be broken. We'll see. Next. Our last candidate, Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania. He's 51 years old. Every time I hear his name, I'm like, was he an API? Did you go to a date party with him? Like, that's just what it gives me every single time. He was elected in 2023 after serving as Pennsylvania's attorney general, and he actually outperformed Biden in that election, meaning he got more votes in Pennsylvania for governor than Biden did for president. So his experience as attorney general and being in Pennsylvania politics for forever, he's been working there since 2005, could tell us what potential election fuckery could look like this fall, where Republicans have said there will be election fuckery in Pennsylvania, and we should all expect it. This election looks like it's going to run through Pennsylvania more and more every day. And from where I stand, he's got, I believe Pennsylvanians would say, yins on lock. He's got those voters on lock. So he has the highest electoral upside of any of these candidates. And that could be a huge difference for him. He's getting a lot of points for how he handled the Trump assassination attempt, which was obviously in his state. He took it very seriously. He addressed it fully with quick speed, which was something that he also did, and voters were a huge fan of when the section of like a highway collapsed and he got the overpass back up in 2 weeks, which in this country is unheard of. And when people say that they care about infrastructure, that is what they're talking about. He also right now is trying to frantically course correct his stance on school vouchers, which is when you like funnel taxpayer money to send more kids to private school. That is completely out of step with the rest of the Democratic Party. I was actually surprised to see that he felt that way. And he's trying to quickly move on from that position. His replacement issue, you need to bear with me on this one. He has a lieutenant governor who will become governor who's a Democrat. Fine. The Senate pro tem leader in the Pennsylvania legislature will become the lieutenant governor. That is a Republican who's like election denialism central, who will be the tie-breaking vote in a very locked up legislature come election time. Who knows what kind of election certification business could happen there. So that should give them a lot of pause when it comes to Josh Shapiro. His cons are that many young people are advocating against him because of his very, very strong pro-Israel stance. He did call pro-Palestinian protesters the KKK and like white supremacists. So that's not playing well for him when Democrats are trying to cool down that issue actively. Also, his office apparently settled a sexual harassment suit on the lowdown, which is hard to have that in the mix when you're trying to frame Trump as like the harassment guy. So kind of a mixed bag there for Josh Shapiro. He's got a lot of support behind him, but we'll see what happens. Those are our 4 candidates. Get to know them. You'll need an answer soon. So pick who you like. And yes, his head is biggest, Tim Walz. It was not on purpose, but I'm sure you could tell that if I had to choose, if it was up to me. It's Q&A time, and we're going to start with Logan, who says, there are a lot of candidates for Kamala's VP. Been said that. What do you think she should focus on when choosing one? Because I already laid out kind of the hardline resume things, there's a thing in basketball called intangibles, which are the things that you can't see on a resume or a stat sheet. They're not going to come up on someone's LinkedIn. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you ask, politics has become a complete personality contest. So her actually having this big personality, I think for the first time is actually working in her favor. And nobody has established that more than Donald Trump. He is like the personality hire in all of the American presidential history. I do think she needs to factor in somebody who complements her personality. I'm not saying who is as, loud and funny and outgoing and perceived as cool or whatever, but somebody who complements that and can build around that. It's very clear from the jump that JD Vance and Donald Trump's personalities are in complete conflict. I don't even understand what they would be having conversation about if it came down to it, if they were in this room right now. So she, I think, is going to put more thought into who she connects with as a person. It's why I put Roy Cooper on the list, because she had originally said that she really, really likes him as a person. So I wouldn't, overlook how important it is that she and her VP get along. So maybe I'll look at some videos of her talking to all of these people and let you know what I come up with. Now from James. How important to Democrats is securing the middle with straight white male VP? Nailed it. Compared to what Republicans did, doubling down on extreme assholery. Your word, not mine. I think it's very important. Democrats are the only ones who are actively pursuing the middle. I think for a brief, glimmering second, Republicans were trying to say that Donald Trump had changed because of the assassination attempt, and that was an effort to peel off some voters in the middle who might be conflicted. But that's gone completely down the toilet since everything happened within the last 2 weeks. So I'm really, really seeing Democrats extending a hand and trying to reach for that middle that might be forgotten. And she may do that by picking a more centrist, moderate candidate, which would be someone like Mark Kelly or Josh Shapiro, probably. I think that's going to be their prime constituency that they're reaching out for. Trump has not made any gains with new voters in the past 4 years. He's hovering at the same 47% that he was last time. So he kind of hit his ceiling. Democrats have much more space to go before they hit their ceiling. So I'm curious to see how they do it. And Sean, what demographic is her VP going to appeal to the most? Love this question right now, because last night there was this white dudes for Kamala call. Crazy name. Still feel a little weird about this demographic splitting into all these different categories in their own Zooms, but if that's their mechanism for organizing, so be it. It's clearly working. They've raised, I think, $10 million or something just with identity specific groups in the past week. The White Dudes for Kamala call had 160,000 men on it. Apparently there was some crying. There was a lot of emotions, a lot of celebrities. That's the demographic that she is going to be fighting for her life for. The white, non-college educated men is the key demographic in this election, especially in states like Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania. So she's going to be vying for those votes heavily and setting the tone with this VP pick from the jump. So that's good. That's the demographic I have my eye on most for this election. You guys know I'm my men's rights activist, because it's going to be a white male off between JD Vance and whoever Kamala Harris ends up picking. I did have JD Vance in my mix in my last video. He was one of my 5 candidates. And I did, not to toot my own horn or whatever, say that his constituents, Trump's constituents, might have a hard time playing into Vance because he's just not a hit with their base. And what do you know? I was right. So maybe I'll be right about it this time again. We'll obviously see what happens. Until then, I'm going to be replying to campaign emails like VP tonight, VP tonight, babe, VP tonight, queen. And I'll be waiting here, biting what's left of my nails till the decision comes through and we can talk about it then. Make sure to subscribe to WTF America and I'll see you next time. Bye.